Welcome back, everyone. This will be my brand new Marvel Ant-Man 3 trailer from Comic-Con, Quantumania. There's a bunch of Easter eggs in here, a bunch of stuff that's leading up to Kang in Avengers 5, which is going to be a version of Kang War called Kang Dynasty. They're just changing the name, but it's basically a version of Kang War from the comics. We'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Ant-Man 3 is going to be the next movie after Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out. Ant-Man 3 is coming out in February next year, so we wanted to wait that long. But obviously now, because so much of Marvel Phase 4, Phase 5, and Phase 6 is confirmed to turn around the Kang the Conqueror character, or a version of Kang, because there are many different versions of Kang we're going to see, they said that the events of Ant-Man 3 are going to shake the foundation of the MCU in a way that the Ant-Man movies have not done previously. And most of the movie does take place down in the quantum realm. Like, that's where he fights Kang the Conqueror, that's where we see a version of MODOK, that's where we see Bill Murray's character, who seems like he's playing a version of Krylar from the comics. But I'll talk more about each of those characters when we get to them in the trailer footage. This is one of the longest trailers that Marvel showed off at Comic-Con because it is the next movie after Black Panther Wakanda Forever. There was a Guardians of the Galaxy teaser trailer video I'll do a separate video for later this week. There was a little bit of less footage for that, but it confirmed a bunch of big details. They didn't release the trailer online, so I have to be kind of careful the way I use the footage from the actual trailer in the video here. But as the trailer footage starts, they show that Scott Lang is very pleased with his life in present-day post-Avengers Endgame. He's parlayed his role from saving the world from Thanos to become internationally famous. They show him in a bookstore reading a book that he wrote called Watch Out for the Little Guy, quote-unquote, that's become a bestseller. So, like, he's made a bunch of money. Somebody tell Falcon that if he needs a bank loan to call Scott Lang, because apparently Scott Lang is flush with cash now. Then you start to hear voiceover from Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror character, and he's not playing the same version that we saw during the Loki finale. That was the He Who Remains version of Kang. This new Kang the Conqueror is meant to be a variant of that character, and there are a couple different versions that you see of him in the trailer. Like, in one, he's wearing his classic Kang the Conqueror blue-looking suit. I'll explain how it's a little bit different in the MCU. They made it look a little bit more practical. And in one of the other scenes, he looks just like regular Jonathan Majors without his mask on, with his regular skin tone. So, like, his face won't be blue like it is in the comics. The blue actually comes from the mask that he wears when he's in the quantum realm with his special Kang the Conqueror suit. Like, they're treating his Kang the Conqueror suit from the comics, which you see in the poster here, like, this is kind of what he looks like in his Kang the Conqueror suit with the mask around his head. The blue just comes from the mask that goes over his head. This is basically what Kang the Conqueror looks like in his full Kang suit. But his voiceover starts by saying, "You're an interesting man, Scott Lang. You've lost a lot of time, but time isn't what you think. It's not a straight line." And while he's doing this voiceover, they flash through a bunch of different scenes of Scott Lang just enjoying his life as a celebrity. Like, you see him and Hope Van Dyne at this big premiere party. The reference to him losing a lot of time is him losing time with his daughter, missing the 5 years that he was stuck in the quantum realm where she grew up into a teenager. Obviously, they've recast Katherine Newton as a version of his teenage daughter. She's like an older teenager now because Katherine Newton is in her 20s, who in this trailer has become the Stinger version of the character. You can see a version of her suit in the poster here. In the comics, the Stinger identity that she adopts is a relatively recent thing. Her Stinger costume is basically just like an upgraded version of Hope Van Dyne's Wasp suit, so she has pretty much the same powers as the Wasp has. In the Young Avengers comic, she was known as Stature, and she was more like a version of Giant Woman, like her big thing was growing really huge. So they have changed that during this movie, like she'll be more like the Wasp during this movie. There were some deleted scenes of young Cassie Lang and Ant-Man the Wasp going small with Scott Lang having adventures, really tiny size, with the ants wearing a more traditional version of the Ant-Man suit. So as a teenager, it just seems like she's been active as the Stinger character, wearing this version of the Stinger suit for a little while now. And while Kang the Conqueror is doing his initial voiceover talking about how time isn't what Scott Lang thinks it is, in a different part of the movie, during this big montage, he gets a phone call from the San Francisco Police Department saying that Cassie Lang has been arrested, and he goes to pick her up. It sounds like she's just getting into trouble the same way that he got into trouble when he was busy becoming Ant-Man. Like, she has a lot of the same qualities that he had. Like, really resourceful, but winds up getting herself into all kinds of trouble trying to be a superhero. Once Scott Lang bails her out, there's a scene of them also happening during this early Jonathan Majors Kang voiceover where they're all having dinner at the Pym's house. This is Hank Pym's house. So it's like Scott Lang, Cassie, Hope, Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, all of them together, and they're all making fun of Scott Lang for trying to say that he's so famous all the time and talking about the time that he saved the world. It's kind of like the other Avengers making fun of Iron Man for reminding everyone all the time about how he saved the world during the first Avengers movie.
Anybody remember when I carried a nuke through a wormhole?
No, it's never come up.
Save New York?
Never heard that.
Recall that?
Then there's a completely separate scene of them in Hank Pym's lab doing an experiment together where a vortex opens up and sucks Cassie Lang into the quantum realm first, and then the rest of them get sucked into the quantum realm separately. And when the accident happens, you see this blue light open up, and it's kind of like the same blue color that you see from the portal that Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four opens up. They did confirm that that was meant to be an Easter egg for Doctor Doom's time travel platform and eventually Kang the Conqueror in the comics. Like Jonathan Krasinski's Reed Richards was using quantum energy to power his portal technology, and his design of portals look kind of like the TVA portals that He Who Remains Kang had them using. As they're getting sucked into the quantum realm, Kang the Conqueror says, "Time is not a straight line." Then I think it's Hope Van Dyne or Cassie Lang who says, "Where are we?" And you see them inside the quantum realm. And here's the thing, the environment where you're at, you see all this traditional looking quantum energy arcing around them, and it kind of looks like a bunch of blood vessels around them. It looks exactly like the zoomed in view of the signal coming from inside the 10 rings in the Shang-Chi post-credit scene. So like when they zoom in, they see that mystery signal. Who's it broadcasting to? What is this signal? What's going on here? Now it seems more like there's a connection between that signal and Kang the Conqueror and what's happening in Ant-Man 3. Then pretty much all the rest of the footage in the trailer, and there's a lot of footage, is all inside different places in the quantum realm. Like you go into the Quantum City, which we saw a view of during Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like we didn't actually travel there, but we saw the Quantum City in the background. The idea was that when Janet Van Dyne was stuck in there for all those years, she'd spent time in the Quantum City, and she'd learned about all the organisms that live down there. Then as they start walking around the Quantum City, showing you these different areas, these different structures, Kang the Conqueror says, "Maybe you can see time the way I do. You can see everything." Then Janet Van Dyne and Hope Van Dyne are separately together walking through the Quantum City trying to find everyone. And you see Bill Murray's character for the first time, and it looks like actual Bill Murray, like he looks kind of like a human who's inside the quantum realm. But the rumor is that he's playing a version of the Krylar character, who is like an alien that lives in the quantum realm. In the comics, they called it the Microverse, but the IP for that doesn't belong to Marvel, so they just changed the name from Microverse to Quantum Realm. He said that he's meant to be one of the villains in the movie, maybe not the main villain, but one of the villains. He recognizes Janet Van Dyne as if they know each other, either from her time being stuck in the quantum realm previously, or he's also a human who just is now in the quantum realm as well, using his own technology. It remembers her from before she got stuck in the quantum realm when they were much younger. Then you see a bunch of blue energy arcing around different structures that looks more like the timeline that you saw in the Loki finale, like the sacred timeline, when you were outside of the timeline, just watching it arc across space. And this seems like a reference to the actual timeline, the way that Kang the Conqueror manipulates time. You start to see visions of Kang the Conqueror, but they show him in really roundabout ways and different types of structures, whatever machine he's using to manipulate time and space. You get more Kang the Conqueror voiceover. He says, "Your world, your reality, everything you're holding on to, everything you call life, I know how it ends," which is a reference to Kang controlling the entire timeline, or feeling like he controls the entire timeline. They show you a montage of a bunch of Kang the Conqueror structures, and during this, there's a separate scene of a version of MODOK, and he looks a little bit different from what we've seen in the comics before. It's more of a giant metal mask with a couple eyepieces. There's another mystery character here. I'm not sure who this is supposed to be. None of the interviews that all the websites did after this at Comic-Con mention who she's supposed to be playing, but it's also in the quantum realm. You see Janet Van Dyne fighting what looks like another quantum monster down here in the quantum realm. Then they have another funny scene of Scott Lang trying to face Kang the Conqueror, meeting him for the first time. They reveal him walking in with his feet first, then they slowly pan up and reveal that it's Jonathan Majors, Kang the Conqueror. And he's not wearing his mask, like it's actual Jonathan Majors' face. And you hear Scott Lang saying, "I don't know who you think you are, but you've made a big mistake. I'm an Avenger." Then it pauses and you see the full reveal of his face. It's Jonathan Majors' face. It looks like He Who Remains version of Kang, but it is meant to be the different variant who's a version of Kang the Conqueror. And he kind of quizzically tells him, "Oh, you're an Avenger," like, "Oh, that's surprising. I'm a Conqueror." Like he's completely unperturbed by Scott Lang showing up saying that he's an Avenger, because obviously Kang the Conqueror knows who the Avengers are. Then when they transition to the title scene, the way they reveal the title, it looks kind of like a bunch of timelines arcing across space, which is just meant to be a reference back to Kang the Conqueror and what you saw in the Loki finale with all the different timelines. One of the other big reveals at Comic-Con was that Avengers 5 is going to be a version of Kang Dynasty that they're calling it, but it's basically like their version of Kang War from the comics. Kang War is like one of the first big Avengers arcs during the all-new, all-different era. It was meant to be a completely new Avengers team fighting a version of Kang across the timeline, and during that story, it featured a bunch of different versions of him across his own timeline, but the big difference from the MCU version is that it was meant to be a single version of Kang from different points in his own timeline, like it wasn't a bunch of different variants of Kang. I'm sure there's 1,000 questions about what was going on in the Ant-Man 3 trailer, so if you have any questions about that, just write them below in the comments. I'll do a separate video tomorrow for like the full Avengers 5 teaser for Kang Dynasty and for Avengers 6 Secret Wars. Because they're trying to release those in the same year, they're kind of doing the same thing with Infinity War and Endgame, where it's one giant story with two very different parts broken into a big cliffhanger. And the cliffhanger this time will be basically like the last remaining universe forming Battleworld for the Secret Wars movie. Everyone click here for my Black Panther Wakanda Forever trailer video and Easter eggs, and click here for my brand new She-Hulk trailer video and Easter eggs, including Daredevil coming back. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.